So thanks very much. So yeah, I'm Alan Ratri. I'm a PhD student, and today I'm just going to present you what I did in my master degree. Was in the at the University of Arizona with Professor Hannah Donaus and another PhD student, Greg, and we work on the impact of the Nest architecture in communication. So as you may see and know, the Nest is really impressive structure, especially in ants. They can be built and dig. On the left, we see a Lasius species that dig this amazing gallery. It's very a beautiful shape, actually. And on the right here, we have a well-described species, Pogonomyrmex badius, and this quite famous cast. But the nest is essentially is essential for the colony members and for the colony itself. It can serve as food storage or food culture. Here we see a network of fungi that is cultivated by the worker and the colony, and can also serve as a shelter. So here we see that the colony start to build a circle around the one colony members, and it can also, and more importantly, serve as defense and prevent any invasion by predators. So here we have a black army ant that is trying to invade another colony. And we see that the response is just a huge fight. So the nest is important, but is also a physical shape, a physical space. So it has physical constraint, obviously. It would constrain the individual and in a certain shape and impacting, by the way, the spatial organization of the nest. It constrains individual movements because you're not able to move freely as you will do in a completely open space. And by impacting movements and by impacting spatial organization, you will impact the interaction between individuals. One of the most important interaction in a social insect is communication. Is really an essential feature. So communication can happen through trophallaxis, which is just the exchange of food or any liquid between two nestmates that contain information. The most known one is the pheromone trail, where an individual lays a pheromone on the ground and is following by all the other nestmates. And another one is the antennation, direct contact between two individuals that touch briefly the antennae. And this is more on this one that we're going to focus. So we were wondering, how does the nest impact the communication networks? So to do that, we used a species, Temnothorax rugatulus, that is commonly found in North America and especially in the mountain. They nest in rock crevices, and they just migrate between nest sites when they find a better quality nest. So to look at the impact of the nest shape, we took two different nest shapes, obviously, a tube shape that is kind of a difficult shape and not very connected shape, and a circle shape that is an open space where every point inside the shape are connected one to another. But we took also two density, a high density that where there is a lot of individual in a restaurant space, and a low density when there is twice more space for individual. We put an intruder inside the nest after acclimated them to a certain nest shape, and recording the behavior of the colony and tracking them. By tracking them, we have been able to build a communication network by seeing which individual was interacting with which one. And this allows us to make measure of efficiency, which is just the shortest distance between every pair of nodes in the networks. So for instance, on this graph, if I want to go from A to Z, I have several paths that offer to me. But the shortest one is to go through this line. We also take the largest component or the largest cluster of the networks. So if we have a network like that where we have some nodes that are disconnected to the other, we just focused on one part of the nest. So from this part, we take the diameter, which is the shortest path from the two extreme points of the network. And we also took the mean path length, which is just the sum of all the paths divided by the number of paths we have. So using the largest component is really similar to using the entire networks. Why? Because we see here that most of the individual in the networks are present as well in the largest cluster. And also more than 90% of the interaction we find the whole networks are happening as well in this principal cluster. So what have we found? When we look at the efficiency of the network, so a lower efficiency, it means that the communication between group members is quite tricky. On the other way around, if we have a high efficiency, it means that the communication between two individuals is quite easy and is spread easily. If we take a low density, we see that the circle shape is not good at propagate the information. And a surprising result is this one. When we use a tube shape that should be a tricky space for individuals in the nest, we should expect that the efficiency should decrease, but this is not the case here. We will see later what might be the issue. So if we take the principal cluster, which is the higher cluster of the network, we see similar results, especially, so what is the diameter? The diameter, if we have a low value of diameter, it means that the individuals are close one to another. On the other side, if we have a high value of diameter, it means that the path between the most extreme points are quite high. If we look at the circle shape at low density, we have a very high diameter, which can be a response to the decrease of efficiency and low efficiency because we are far away one to another, and spreading the information when you are far on the network is quite tricky. However, this result is still weird because we wouldn't expect a network that is really efficient to have a huge expand network. And if we take the mean path length, so as I remember, if we have a low mean path length, we have on average individuals that are close one to another. And if we have a high path length, we have individuals that on average are far one to another. We still have this circle shape that is coherent with the other results we have when we are in the low density and the circle shape. We have individuals that are far one to another on the networks. However, we still have this tube shape that show individuals that are quite far one to another, but still have a high efficiency. How is that possible? Is that possible because if we look at the networks, the activity, we see that there is, so I plotted through time, but it's just a matter to have you visually on here. So if we look at the low density in the tube shape, we see that the proportion of active ants in the nest is way lower than all the other treatment. So less active ants in the tube at low density. What does it mean? It means more cluster of inactivity. So we have a cluster where ants have no movement, but because they are one close to another, it increases the efficiency of the network. Having less individual alerts in this kind of shape, it means that the information doesn't propagate through all the network. So if we summarize briefly what we found that the lower density of ants reduce the efficiency of the networks because the distance between nodes increase. On the other way, a high density will increase the efficiency, especially because the distance between nodes is slightly decreasing. However, if we look at the high density of individual, we don't find any differences between having a tube shape or a circle shape. The efficiency is the same, the mean path is the same, and the diameter is the same. So why is that important? So as I say, this species of ant is migrating and will move the entire colony as soon as they find a better quality nest. So migrating in another quality nest might be is assessing by scout ants. These ants will go and investigate the new nest. It might be important to focus on the shape of the nest if we want to defend the colony, because if we want to spread the information easily within the nest that we are invaded or there is a predator that we have to defend, it's way faster to do that if the communication network is efficient. I want to thank everyone that helped me on this work, and I want to thank also the IUSSC for this meeting, and thank you for listening.